Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Masya Allah.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting me. Yeah, thank you for Dia for inviting me to give or to share my experience to student here. What I'm a bit challenging is that I'm heavily my background heavily in engineering, but I hope there is quite big common things or common skill that we can share, which is the process of engineering design. If you see the name engineering design, it's not like engineering that you taught in mechanical engineering, civil engineering, or electrical engineering. No, engineering is just mean engineer, or in Indonesia, easy, probably in Bahasa, probably easier for you to understand what engineering means. It's just rekayasa. So you can rekayasa anything regardless your background, or I even will show you the engineering design process in our daily life. So really, the engineering design process is an approach for you to create a solution. It can be for any STEM, yeah, STEM, science, engineering and math, or MIPA. I'm familiar with that word since I was in university more than 30 years ago. We call it MIPA. Yeah, right. Since you will be working more on scientific or fundamental or one STEM, so I'm hopefully this sharing topics will be useful for you. Yes. So, yeah. Yeah, then I will keep repeating saying about engineering design process. It's not because of my background is engineering, it's just because this is really, I use this many years in the industry. I even didn't know before this theory, but I did it in industry. So the process actually, naturally, you will have this process. Yeah. Yeah, this is just a standard intended learning outcome, and this is what we expect you to have at the end of this sharing session. That you understand the key process of how to solving a scientific problem or research problem or project, and you recognize the iteration or basically pengulangan atau repeating and refining is important in science. So you always guess at the beginning or using existing research to define the solution that you thought that will be useful or will solve the problem or will answer the problem, and then you need to keep repeating it. After, oh yes, this is the solution. Solution A, you trying it, fail, you try again, A1, fail, you try B, and etc. And you can identify the real world problem as a starting point. That's the most important thing, because sometimes scientists, researchers talk about what they think, but it's not the real problem. It's alright sometimes because it's like a fundamental research. Sometimes it's coming from anywhere, but we hope something like teknologi tepat guna also. It's used. It has to be something that a real world problem. And then you need to develop and test the solution that you thought will be the answer of the problem in the structured process. So you cannot just guessing testing. No, you need to define what test that really appropriate for your solution or for the use of the solution you thought. And refine experiment based idea based and feedback and results. So after you got it, this is the best. You testing it, and you need to conclude or summarize your steps, the best step what you have, and give a recommendation. This is useful also for framework for your final project. Yeah, something like scriptsheet. I don't know how's the structure, but in general, thesis, dissertation, or even a scriptsheet, even my PhD, is always about what is the problem. Problem is big, you need to limit them, and then you need to start thinking what is the existing solution or existing technology that closely to solve that problem, and then you start with the to think what we call it here ideation, and then select one of them and then continue. Right, we'll discuss about that in detail in the next couple of slides. Yeah, the outline more or less and what is engineering design process, a scientific problem solving process, a step, an example, and challenge. You challenge is just something that you probably commonly happen when you running these steps. We probably can skip that, and I can send the slide to Dia, and we can also cover a different approach of the scientific problem solving process, because engineering design process is really just one of the tools, but it's very common in industry or research. Yeah. What is engineering design process? Is a systematic, iterative way to solve scientific problem used by scientists and researchers. I usually say used by engineers, and from laboratory work to real world application, something like that. So that's covering what EDD covers for. Right, there is 7 steps. I make it in line. I should show you the cycle one. This is actually cycle process. Means it never ending. It's always go round and round and round. Once you got the solution, it's always another problem coming up. So define the first steps. Okay. Oh yeah. Also, I need to mention that the step is varied in industry or in market. There's some say 5 steps, 6 steps, 7, up to 9, I think. But more or less, if you can get this, I took in the middle. If you can get this, hopefully you can understand other process, because they are all more or less the same sequence of flow. So first, define problem. Identify the scientific question and challenge. So what is the problem that you actually want to solve? That's usually coming. You will face it in scriptsheet, for example, or your final project. And then you start researching what is existing finding, what is existing technology out there that close to your problem or your question or the problem that you want to solve. This quite well, it depends. It depends on your time, and I think in Indonesia you still have. Is there any maximum time for scripting?
Biasanya itu kalau kuliah for your practice and it can be from that. and beer. But usually they spend like 1 year or more for it to use.
Right, okay, 1 year or more. So, what I'd like to say here is it's different system in the UK. So it's not always they are better than us or better than Indonesia because in there it's actually 6 months here.
And also for them, they don't have defense. Like,
Yes, yeah,
here they have defense.
at the beginning.
Like PhD.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like your script.
If you're there, then yeah, it's hard for you to
Yeah.
graduate and
Yeah. So when I did my SDK or PhD, actually, but it's more or less the same with what you did, what you will do in script. It's in script. Script. Yeah, in your script because the way we do is more or less the same. So back again, the step of research, I stop it there because I said this is really depends the time you have. There in the UK, we have 6 months. I said, yes, we're running in 1 year, but actually it's only 12 weeks. So they need to finish in 12 weeks. So research here, it depends on the time you use because you need to dig it quite a lot on the research out there, on the journal, paper, the best is journal because it's quite peer review. And I don't know, when you finish? No. Really? Scripty? Wow, that's quite hard. Right, okay. What year did you do scripty? No, you, Udia. Yeah. No. What year? 2000. When you did your scripty? Right, okay. I'm asking that because in my era, you can see my daftar pustaka is only maybe half to third, 35% of the page. It's only 3/4 halaman. You know. Because of what? Because we don't have internet at that time. We don't have that. You already have internet. Once you have internet, it's really opening up what is out there. So you need to digging it. You need to the skill you need is just to use the keyword because sometimes the keyword is only A. Because sometimes you need to find the best keyword. Otherwise, you will lose what is finding out there. Right. Next. That's the research. So once you find the research, then you need to specify. Oh, okay. This finding I can use it for to answer the problem that the first step we have. So the first step. So to define. So you need to specify what is actually you want to use or you want to limit your solution in order to answer the definition or problem statement. So you need to have a state hypothesis, criteria, and constraint. The good thing of the scripty or your project, not even. When I said scripty, it can be a project. I did a lot of project in industry. Projects is the same, right? You need to achieve something. Scripty is the same. You need to achieve something with with many constraints. One of the constraints is time, for example. So you need to limit yourself how long you need to spend to do the research, for example. Right. Next, you need to design a solution. Again, please don't think design means always related to the engineering design, product design. No, design can be made like planning the experiment or a system or I don't know. You may find a new material. That's what we call it a design or a solution. You need to design a solution. And then next, you need to create prototype. Again, prototype is always related to the physical prototype or Indonesia. Or maybe if a prototype, if I translate to Indonesia, it's still not really created oleh Purwarupa. Oh, but we don't really use it. Yeah, Purwarupa. So, in engineering, it's easy to see Purwarupa or prototype. It's physically you can see it, but in MIPA, probably you will face a different thing, but still it can be physical, maybe very small, or chemistry or biology, but that's a prototype of a solution. We talk about it in an easy way in the next couple of slides. And next, and then you analyze your prototype. Prototype means something represent your solution, and then you use it to test whether this prototype really can answer your problem. Again, we talk about the next cycle probably in the next couple of slides, and then you analyze. Okay, this solution is actually 75% answering this question. Do you need to iterate it? Yes, it depends on the time, as Dia said, how much time you want to continue for your scriptsheet, and whether it's the value is enough for your scriptsheet. You need to repeating the process again, the process of answering the problem. But it doesn't have to. Again, back on your agreement with the, for me, when I was in the industry, agreement with the client. For example, I did a project with the Rolls-Royce. Rolls-Royce is not a car automotive brand, is an aerospace brand. They produce a jet engine. Once we have the solution and then we offer it them, is it enough? Yes, it's enough for this step, but we need to improve it. That's for example, and then you can speak for your case. You probably can speak to your supervisor or again a client. Sometimes you work into one of the industry. You can ask them whether this is enough or not. Enough doesn't mean you solve that problem, but you have a recommendation. This is the stage, the latest stage. No one else doing this, and this is my solution. It's not answering all of them, but it's still useful because someone else doesn't have to repeat your fail, or someone else can continue your progress. And after that, you need to communicate the solution either through the publication, as Dia said. You need to publish something to tell people, okay, this is the problem I face, this is the research I have, this is the hypothetical theory that I produced, or this is a prototype or new material that I created, and this can help to answer any problem. Right. Hopefully you can listen this. This is the easy explanation of the engineering design process. Although there is a term that you probably don't understand, even me I don't understand, because you know a lot of things in English, but sometimes you don't know in some area, for example, food. I didn't know a lot of vocabulary of food, but yeah, you can probably this song. Yeah? Oh.
Maybe you just finished an intense workout session. It's now 7 o'clock and you're hungry. But you've got friends coming over in half an hour. So, what do? You go through the engineering design process. First, you define the problem or need.
Right, okay, so this guy finished work or finished doing something very tiring, but he has a problem. What is the problem? Problem doesn't mean always something negative. Problem can be something that you need to solve. And what is the problem? As he said here, the problem is. Sorry.
You go through the engineering design process. First, you define a problem or need. In this case, the problem is you're hungry. You've got people who serve in half an hour. And
yeah, people are coming over in half an hour. So there is a constraint here. He needs to prepare a food for a friend within 30 minutes.
let's say I want to. First, you define a problem or need. In this case, the problem is you're hungry. You've got people who serve in half an hour. And they might be hungry too.
That's divided. really make sure you have one sentence, probably good, or up to three, to tell your client, in this case usually your client is your supervisor or the panel that's going to evaluate your proposal or receipt, that you need to define.
Let's say I love it.
Sorry. Yeah.
And then use the research to figure out the design requirements and implementation.
Eight.
And the first thing, use the research to figure out the design requirements. So let's say this was things like create content, money that fits, how much time you have to put in discussion, how many people you have to meet, and any of those people on that discussion. Let's get big start brainstorming ideas for solutions. Then you look online and figure out production. Then you go to finish, you start figuring out what you think. You weigh your options and you determine making something a little choice either faster or
We also have a limitation, the ingredient, the material we have on the fridge. That's part of the research. So see or observe the existing solution or existing finding in research, existing technology that you can use. For example, they don't have a stove, what they can do, obviously in Europe they can create what we call it sandwiches. Sandwiches is just all of them cold food. Bread is cold, margarine is cold. Cold means it's not fresh, it's not hot. So they don't have to cook. That's one of the solutions. Again, this stage is really to see the potential technology, potential material that can answer or can solve the problem. And what is the problem? Like again at the beginning, the problem is he needs to prepare something in 30 minutes with, I don't know, 5 friends will come to his house. Right, okay, next.
We will make sure it's not just you, so you get others to check out. If we're moving with you, everyone too. It's first. Last question is return for the growth topic. In this case, you're testing like you can, but not so much as you can. We go back to the gym and reassess. This is what engineers call iterate, making changes based on tests or feedback. You realize so you start making somebody talk. You try to think. There's others who say their feedback. So you ask your decision and start doing. You might be stuck for your state at home. Maybe it's wrong you had. You test out and you're like, but something other comes to think. So you try to get feedback, you listen, and you realize, oh, it's not really crazy. That's when you might get the answer. And you're like, and Sam's like, sure, I'll do. I love soccer.
Right, it's I forgot a little bit of here. So I did talk about specify what actually you want to create as a solution. But I said in this case is what food you want to prepare and make for the solution if this friends coming in 30 minutes. So he did yeah, he did research and don't forget, after you do the research, you need to design something like alternative option. A rule of thumb is usually I ask a student to create tools that you have heard before, I'm sure, using like a SWOT analysis, strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat. And there is a few metric like a table. If we have time, we can talk about that. That's really useful because research is always about rationalize, justification. For example, if I have a solution, I met my client. My latest experience is my client is that in aerospace industry, they create a jet engine and create one of the component. We always tell them, okay, this is a solution. I have a three option A, B, and C, and then I will tell them A, pros and cons, B, what is the weakness, C, what is the delivery. Yeah, there's a lot of tools that we can discuss if we have time, but if not, feel free to email me if you want to discuss any further. Because again, in scripture, for example, panel usually ask, the examiner ask, client ask, why you select this option. For example, like this, there is three options actually, and why he dropped two of them. Of course, well, in this case it's easy. Oh, because it doesn't have that ingredient. Oh, it's because there is one good solution, what is one good food where everyone like that food, but you need to cook very long. For example, rendang. You cannot make rendang in 30 minutes. That's for example. So yeah, and it's always about rationalize and justification why you select a solution. And yeah, sorry. Yeah, after he knows what is the solution, okay, I'm going to create sandwiches, for example. He started to create a prototype, to call it. Prototype here is really good, and he tested asking family to test whether this food is good or not. That's the prototype and analyze stage. Yeah, and then yeah, that's what we call it, communicate or publish your research, publish your result, and communicate with others. As I said, I communicate with the client, communicate with customer. If you create something, for example, I'm sure some of you will be working in industry to create a product. Customer product is always about MIPA thing. There is a material there, there is a chemical there, and in that case, you communicate. Communicate can be you tell like a survey, but it also can be like a product that you sell or you distribute to customer, and you will get a feedback if there is a problem. Hopefully, it's not a problem. It's just usually they ask more than you already have. Yeah, I think that's all about the process. So hopefully you can imagine the whole engineering process is not something that very engineering rocket scientist. No, it's not. It's not about that. It's about approach. So if the friend asking why you create this, they will say, oh, because of my skill to create the food is just this. That's the first. I don't have a lot of time. That's the second. The third, I don't have too many ingredients. That's why I asked. He said here, he asking to a friend to bring a chili. Right, okay, back again. Maybe just one example. I have a lot of example in engineering or mechanical or civil thing, but in this case, I'm trying to find something to adapt or to fit with your area, with your subject. So, sorry. Mungkin saya agak percepat saja yang ini karena ya ini agak challenging bagi saya juga agak kebagian ternyata cuma satu sesi. Saya pikir ada blog teaching saya bisa ngajarnya pelan-pelan, mudah-mudahan tidak terlalu banyak informasi yang saya berikan sehingga malah jadi membingungkan. Nanti bisa teman-teman ignore atau tanyakan atau kita bisa diskusi di luar kelas. Ya, saya balik lagi ke proses. Sekali lagi hanya untuk biar teman-teman paham dan mudah-mudahan sekali lagi berguna untuk teman-teman mengerjakan proyek, baik itu proyek riset atau simply bukan tadi ya. Sorry. Yeah, just to make sure that you understand, hopefully, with the very simple process, and then we taking a bit the next level to use it related to your subject. Again, I have a lot of example in my slide actually, but it's related to engineering, and this one I'm trying to make a fit with your subject. So define a problem, for example, about water. So you need to identify the core issues. You can find it out there. You can find from industry what is actually the problem that you can solve for your project or for your research. This is really useful for us. For example, in first year, right? Okay, that's really good. This is really important because you always learn a subject sporadically, or each subject doesn't relate to anything else. And while in industry, you need a multidisciplinary skill where you combine all the skills in one project. That's why if I said this here about the project or scriptsheet, it's really useful for you if a company wants to assess your skill before they recruit you. So it's really good to know the problem, not only like in biology, not only in the physics, not only in the mathematics, but you can combine them you have all of the taste from the different subject. Right, and then you do some research. For example, developing a low-cost water filter, designing a plant growth experiment. Maybe you don't need to have a plant, but you can do it in your backyard. And you also testing an eco-friendly chemical process. For example, you have a chemical process, and then you do some research in relate to answering your problem that you're going to use. Get the relevant information, investigate existing solutions and relevant data. Read from the journal or paper, and yeah, all of the information you gather is to fit to inspire the innovative idea, and then you specify. So once you got that, so you need to explore a different. This is just an example. In water, for example, you explore a different filtering method. The material that you can use, whether the material is engineered material, or it's really useful if you just use the existing material out there. The less you process the material, the better. Well, in my point of view, in terms of manufacturing, obviously, from MIPA, probably know better how to treat the material. One of the approaches is off-the-shelf product. Off-the-shelf, something that you can take from the shop, is actually the best product, or something you can take from natural or from alam, so from natural resources. It's easy without any process, because process is always energy. Process usually producing carbon footprint. Right, and then you need to specify. Right, okay. You need to specify requirement. You need to define the problem. For example, the problem, yes, you need to clean water. However, you need to make it clearer or more detailed what is the clean water means. Of course, in terms of health, it's safe to drink, of course, yes, but other requirement, for example, easy to process, easy to find the component to filtering, easy to manufacturing, easy to operate for the rural area, for example. usually in what they call it T3, tertinggal terdepan, ya itu I forgot what is that. It's something that usually we call just rural area in Africa. Usually that's the best example about the water. Usually you can see on the website. However, in Indonesia we still have something like that. So the system, for example, you need to say. You can also say the specification is the price. So easy specification, for example, maybe this is my favorite example, mobile phone, because everyone using a mobile phone. The mobile phone, for example, you have specification. Before you buy it, you have specification. Oh, I want Android because it's very easy to get the app. I want the 6 megapixels, the latest resolution of the camera. I want the front camera is also as high as the back camera resolution, because you are very young when the smartphone start release. Front camera is always less quality than back camera. That's, for example, what we call it the specification. And then there's a constraint. Obviously, the price it should be less than 5 million. For example. That's what we call a specification. You need to very clear what the specification you're going to achieve, because all of the board after that specification will refer to the specification. Sometimes there is a many case if you not accurately define the specification, you need to change specification, unfortunately. But it's also okay. That's why you need to keep communicate with your client or with your supervisor, whether say, oh sorry, this specification that I set up at the beginning cannot be achieved, it's too hard, it's too long, or it's too expensive. Right, and then this is for example to effective removal of dirt of micro. I'm trying to fight with the fit. I'm not the expert on the water filtering, but this is more or less what we will think. And you need to design based on your specification. What are you going to put there? What the shape you're going to use? What the material filter you're going to use? And then you start to creating prototype. The difference with prototype and the mass production, prototype is made only 1 or 2 or 3, depending on how many, depending on your test. Usually, 1 is enough as long as you can do the test to do the filtering the water. But sometimes you need more. For example, okay, I have a lot of example in industry. For example, in automotive, some countries they require like 250 prototype, but in Indonesia we only need like a 5 prototype. Why they need that much? Because one of them testing for the very rough area, one of them testing for the lab level, and etc. So prototype really depend on what you need to test the system. For the prototype is not only physical, as I said in the beginning, it also can be a modeling. For example, in math, they can create a model of the solution and then they run the program to see whether this is work or not. Right, after you have the prototype, you need to analyze whether all of the filter material, wood, sand, gravel can reduce the dirt of the water or not. Again, you need to use a lab to see whether this water is actually really significantly changing from before the filter and after the filter, and then you can find whether this healthy is safe enough to drink or not. After this, again, you can stop and make a summarize or conclusion based on my recipe. What you need to put on the filter, it can reduce the dirty of the water by 75%, for example. And this actually enough for you to drink as long as you boil that first and something like that. So that's enough. Or you can go back if you have time, and then you add some more filter material, for example, until you got that. And all of them you need to put it on your report. And then you start communicate to as a scriptsy report or your scriptsy, your thesis, or you can also do, as Budia said, you can also publish your research into a journal. Remember, in journal, usually there's a peer or review by other expert that usually also know and usually expert in they have expertise in water filtering, so they know whether this research is good to publish or good to be read by others in order either to continue the research or even better to produce the product. Yeah, the next one will be a challenge. What's challenge in running the engineering design process? I think this one we can you can skip, you can read, or we can discuss after if we have time to discuss further. The next one, here, yeah, the folder. This is another approach to evaluate your idea. What we call it a LCA, life cycle assessment. So you need to assess the product or the solution you have to consider or to respect the environment. So ethical decision making in scientific practice can be engineering. Yeah. Ethics and decision making. So there is a lot of. So when you have a solution, you have a responsible for environment and for people. So you need to think, you need to put into consideration what people or environment will be affected of your solution. That's why I call it engineering or scientific practice. Yeah, this is right. There's one good approach, what they call it, probably some of you already think, already thought, or already understand what is a think global and act local. So you need to put something bigger in order for you to act locally. And hopefully, well, not hopefully, you are expected to do a local acting, refer to the bigger picture or think global. One of those examples here is what is actually thing that you can use as a global thinking. Well, let's go back. Yeah, the easiest thing is we're taking what you call it 70 goals of SDGs, Sustainable Development Goal. It's kind of like our agreement. All people living on Earth agree to achieve this 17th global challenge. I will not go into one of them. I'm just taking some of the example. It was for engineering, but I'm pretty sure it's related to you. For example, the SDG number what? Yeah, number 3, for example, about good health and well-being. There's a goals number 3. And what you can do is designing safe and effective medical and assisting devices. So there's a bigger picture about good health, and then working to support that goal. And then another example, for example, in affordable and clean energy, that's a very big issue recently. And then next local, you can working on renewable energy system and energy efficient technology. That's, I think, will still relate with your subject in chemical for the battery or physics also. Right, okay, and next, for example, industry innovation in infrastructure. You can be part of it to developing a product, machine, and manufacturing system. And another example is responsible consumption and production. This is quite important because you are part of, every day consume something, consume energy for cleaning up this room, but you also heating up outside. And then you need to do local acting again with the umbrella of 70 SDGs, and you can use the tools like LCA to reduce environmental impact, what we're going to discuss in a couple of minutes. And climate action, you can design a solution that reduce the emission. One of the issues, for example, on electric vehicle. How to combine the engineering design process and LCA. This is, I said, maybe a bit complicated, but still you can use this framework for your assignment. So if you have engineering design process 7 steps, as I said to you before, as we discussed it before, about us, research, imagine the solution, planning to take one of the solutions, create a prototype, testing the prototype, and see what the prototype can do well or what didn't go well, and then you communicate. The LCA is more or less on this stage. These 4 stages. So at these 4 stages, you need to start putting LCA, life cycle assessment, in order to find or to run your research. Life cycle assessment, I take a lot of different stages as well, but this time I think I took 6 stages of life cycle assessment. First, you need to start when you create something, product, material you have to develop, like our water filter and an extraction. You need to think about when you take the raw material from the earth. That's how far the life cycle assessment to think. You may think electric vehicle is good for environment. Yes, when you run that car, when you run that motorcycle. But how when you taking the material out from the earth, like a nickel, maybe you know better than me, ion or something like that. It's very give a carbon biggest carbon free during that project. Hopefully we still have time to discuss the slide. And then the material processing is also taking up a lot of energy and produce the carbon footprint. You can find this, when you do the solution for your project, you need to start thinking how is this actually material produced during the manufacturing. And then the component manufacturing, then they start creating each of the material is also produced using the energy. Remember, the problem with the environment is not only producing the carbon fiber, they are also taking up the energy. And then the distribution, don't forget, distribution is still always a problem to produce the carbon footprint. That's why some people say use the local resources. Why they need to use local resources? It's not just only to develop economy in your local area, it's also reduce the distribution. And then house product in use, for example, the mobile phone, how many you need to change the battery. You probably haven't known when the mobile phone previously we have something that you can take the battery out of the phone. because the battery easily not drain out, is worn out. So you need to change the battery. So they're selling a battery for the mobile phone, but nowadays you cannot open the battery yourself. And then at the end of life, again, product thing or everything you related to the output of your subject from STEM is always has they always have an end of life. The end of life you need to questioning it whether it can be reused, recycled, or even to use it again. Right. Okay. Very quick. Each of them resources. Uh, yeah, yeah, resources. Oh, that's might be my mistake. Maybe I'll try to delete it. Yeah, resources. Usually getting material from the earth, mining, logging is always giving you a lot of a problem, especially for in mining or pertambangan. As you can see, a lot of environment there, a lot of holes there. Yeah, it's damaging actually, but sometimes we cannot avoid it. For example, aluminium versus recycled plastic. That's probably something that you really it's your area. Which one better? Aluminium, yes, it's more expensive probably, but it's always can be recycled. Aids more than plastic, and usually they use the this is like a chart that you can get from EduPack. There's a software when I teach. Maybe you don't have to, but yeah, there's a software that you can compare the material based on the strength and also based on the carbon footprint. And material processing, it's always a problem as well. Some of the material is very easy to get for environment, but you need to processing it and produce a lot of carbon footprint and energy. And during the component, part manufacturing. This is more on in engineering, but there's a lot of things you create with the different way to do, and all of them has consequences in terms of material they scrap material they produce, which is sometimes you cannot using it, or the process is very expensive. I can skip this. Oh yeah, this is one of the examples. They reduce the number of the component, however the process is very expensive. And distribution, you probably never thought about why this chair shaped like this is because they can be stuck. If they can be stuck, remember if you produce this chair in Jogja and you want to send it to, for example, in Malang, my hometown, you can send 5 chairs in this volume. Imagine if you send the sofa, for example, or the chair is not stackable, so you need to multiply the number of this chair to become more spaces. That's what we call it about stackability. The more you can stack, the better. This one, a bottle, water bottle, you probably don't thought that, this is just a bottle. Maybe there's an aesthetic aspect on it. No, it's not just a bottle, but they thought how many bottles you can stack on the top of this bottle. Imagine in storage. Storage is one of the problem in industry. You need to really have a very good, efficient to store your product. So, for example, this an example of plastic bottle where it's very weak. You can stack it more than, I think it was 7. However, they still have a room actually on the top of it. If the bottle is very weak, then you cannot stack more than 7 stuff, for example, 7 boxes. This also not only on the store but also in the truck. When you put it in the truck, you need to make sure that the bottle is not broken. The bottom layer of the bottle is not broken when you stack them in maybe 5 or more boxes. A product in use, the energy you use, the more less energy, the better. And lifespan means that how long you can keep the product. This is the problem not only for you as a scientist, it's actually the problem of the business, because if they don't change the mobile phone, for example, that's the easiest example, the company will not get more money. So they release mobile phone every year. Actually, do you need it? You probably don't need it to change your phone every year. My phone is now 6 years and it's still okay. What it makes you changing it is just a trend. I don't know, many things. But this is one of the example how the mobile phone that growing. So this mobile phone is designed that you can upgrade the component. The name is Firephone. You probably never heard about the Firephone. They're not really. That's the challenge. They're really what they call it, or they claim it, sustainable phone, but no one will buy it. So basically, when you buy a new mobile phone, you will have better camera, right? This one, you don't need to have. You don't need to buy a new phone. You just need to buy the camera. So that's why here, as you can see on the picture, you can replace the camera. If the battery performance going down, you can replace the battery. If the screen is not high resolution, you can replace the screen. This way, I'm pretty sure they get less money, but they have the motivation to why you change the whole phone, you just need the camera. Why you change the whole phone, you just need the battery, something like that. That's the what we in academic researcher in the research area, we try to promote this kind of thing, that please keep your product longer, because the more you change the product, the more you take the material for environment and the more energy you use. Right, okay. I run out the time. Product use. Right, at the end of life. So, what happened after use? Can you reuse? Can you recycle it? Or you just go to landfill? Landfill is in Europe. There's an area that you can throw everything, including the higher value of the material. Just send it to landfill. And or if you cannot avoid to send this product to landfill or to sampah, to TPA, have things that use the material that biodegradation. So even though you throw in your product, but it's not harm the environment because the material is biodegradable. That's what we expect. This is one of my student final project where the bicycle can actually grow with the kids. So kids age 5 to 8 years, they growing up, they need to change the bicycle. And then 14 to 17, they need to change again the bicycle. And this concept, okay, this is involving a lot of design. I mean, probably not related to you, but the idea, hopefully you can get by changing this brown component, this bicycle is actually can grow. But this is still in the concept. So yeah, I think it's now 15 past 12. If you have any questions.
Okay, thank you so much for the interesting topic. Before I go to the audience, I want to ask something, three questions actually. So, for this one, the defining process is the hardest part because it's hard to find problem around you. So we sometimes we don't know what kind of problem. So it's make us hard to start because the hardest part is to define. So how to tackle this problem.
Right, okay, yeah, interesting.
Jadi gini, biasanya kan kalau misalnya kita mau mulai suatu ini apa namanya project itu bingungnya itu gini, mulainya enggak yang bikin lama itu sebenarnya mulai karena jadi kalau misalnya mau kerjakan tugas itu pasti menunggu deadline. Mulai sesuatu itu sangat susah. Jadi sesuai dengan hukum kelembaban fisika. Kalau belum ada gayanya tuh masih lama, gaya dorongnya lama. Gitu. Nah kita tuh kadang-kadang nggak tahu nih banyak masalah sekitar kita. Cuma kita ini terlalu fokus untuk kayak nggak penting gitu kan. Jadinya kita malah nggak tahu kalau ada hal penting di sekitar kita. Jadi gimana nih mas?
To be honest, it's a very interesting question or good question. So, in in English speaking people, English speaking country, when they say a good question, actually they cannot answer the question. Have you ever heard about that before? So if they say, good question means I actually don't know the answer. Yeah, interestingly, because I discuss something, I explain something in detail, step by step, is from a problem, not finding the problem. So yeah, for finding the problem, I think you can really just try to see what is on the news. And again, there is actually, but yeah, I mentioned it. I just remember it now. Using the global thinking, the 17 SDGs, you can start with that. So see the SDGs open on the website. See the problem. There's a lot of problem there, or you can even join. Some of them release the competition for student. Yeah, there is like in work there is engineering without border. Yeah, engineering without border. They usually release. Oh yeah, I can send you. That's quite good. They can release a problem usually in Africa. There's one in Indonesia as well. Some of them. So they have a topic and then they release on their website and asking you to give them a solution. And the solution is really good because they don't require you like we call it rocket scientist, something that's very, very fundamentally difficult. No, they usually asking you for something really practical. Yeah, try to approach from the SDGs. Yeah, sustainable SDGs.
Itu ada berbagai permasalahan. Ini kan mereka ini pendidikan, pendidikan.
Okay, yeah.
Itu banyak juga permasalahan pendidikan yang ada di SDGs. Nanti bisa dilihat. Jadi kalau misalnya mau, mereka tertarik ke PKM yang program kreativitas mahasiswa di mana. Ya, jadi kalian pasti bingung nih untuk PKM dari mana? Kalau itu cuma dosen. Tapi sebenarnya kalian bisa bentuk sendiri. Bentuk sendiri dari mana? Tadi, mungkin baca-baca ya mas ya, berbagai macam masalah yang ada itu bagaimana solusinya. Tapi memang bagus banget dari SDGs itu biasanya dari penilai itu melihat ini memang bagus temanya. Oke, yang kedua dari saya mas, mereka mungkin pengen juga kerja di luar negeri. Jadi itu, tapi kita punya keterbatasan. Tapi ya, misalnya kita di software aja susah sekali. Jadi kalian udah pakai MedLab belum? Belum. Jadi mungkin banyak yang kita nggak punya MedLab. MedLab yang resmi itu nggak ada. Jadi nggak akan susah. Boy, saya pakai MedLab gratis, gitu kan. Terus saya pakai CAD gratis, semuanya gratis. Pakai software itu juga enaknya, download juga enaknya. Tapi sampai sini nggak bisa download dengan saya minta kalau nggak pakai software yang ya di bawahnya itu. Sekarang kan dulu ada suka mereka, tapi pas sekarang sebenarnya progresnya saya nggak mau pakai mereka lagi. Saya nggak mau pakai malas legal. Nah ini gimana ya mas ya mereka ini kayak kalah saya dari dunia kerja.
Ya, rasanya ini tren saya sebutkan bahwa ini tren itu karena kalau di area saya mungkin bisa jawab gitu untuk solusi software bagian. For example, untuk CAD. Nah, so for example in CAD ya, computer aided design. Okay, yeah, that's why I cannot answer straight away, but hopefully there is a similar trend, similar method, or similar way to do it. For example, in my area, in engineering design, we heavily use CAD, computer aided design. Maybe you heard about Autodesk, AutoCAD, SolidWorks, something like that. Have you heard about that? Yeah? No. AutoCAD? No. No, it's right because it's not their area. But if you know that, I would say what I'm going to say, it's easy for you to understand. But basically, CAD is computer aided design where you can see the product, you can rotate it. Remember, it's not a real product; it's a CAD product. Right. On that case, Mbak Budia, there is a CAD that is free that can get it online. There's a trend that what they call it web-based software. For example, you know Photoshop, that's expensive. Corel, that's expensive. But I have GIMP, for example. You know GIMP? That's really can help in my level. I don't know what level you need for photo editor. Photoshop is very popular, but for me, for teaching, as you can see all of the pictures, so I need to processing. It's not just download from the internet. I need to cutting it, remove the background, etc. I use that GIMP, and GIMP is free, open source. Video editing, I created a lot of video, but there is the free version of it. That's unfortunately I cannot answer the MATLAB one whether there is a software on that level. No. Open source mungkin ya better.
Tunjuk tangan kalau mau ada pertanyaan tentang yang tadi ini. Ini makasih ya yang sudah. Makasih ya sudah yang mau memperhatikan dengan seksama. Appreciated banget yang tadi bisa lihat benar-benar merhatiin yang benar-benar enjoy. Makasih banyak ya. Kan namanya sama.
Halo, Bapak, saya Karisma Rehani dari kelas pendidikan fisika A. Saya ingin bertanya, bagaimana cara bagaimana step untuk mengevaluasi hasil penelitian kita jika hasil yang
gampang jelas.
Jika hasil yang didapatkan itu sangat jauh dari ekspektasi kita. Misal kita ingin membuat sebuah tablet untuk menurunkan kadar besi dalam air. Tapi setelah kita coba, ternyata itu mampu menaikkan kadarnya. Gimana cara kita mengevaluasi untuk menemukan gimana sih step kita yang salah itu?
Kalau Karisma, saya agak sulit menjawab karena gini. Gimana Pak? Menurut saya, maaf loh Pak Karisma. Menurut saya yang salah berarti proses waktu desainnya, bukan. Dari berdasarkan pengalaman saya, jawaban saya adalah yang salah waktu mendesain. Karena Mbak sama sekali miss-nya kejauhan gitu. Iya. Jadi ya mohon maaf kalau jawaban saya sih dari step desainnya yang harus dirubah. Iya. Ya gimana Pak? Karena kalau hasilnya betul-betul sangat negatif, kalau Mbaknya nanya kok target saya ini 100%, saya dapatnya cuma 25%. Nah, oke lah, di situ mungkin kita bisa evaluasi.